Thank you, Gertrude. I didn't realize quite how long that bio was, but rock and roll. I'm gonna roll with it. So it's so good to see everyone here. I know it's been a very interesting, very wonderful couple of days of the summit, and what I'm really hoping for today is that with all the different speakers speaking about their different life experiences, we can really start to examine how we look at the world and challenge our notions of what, the prepackaged life that society kind of imposes on us, and just really challenge those expectations. But anyway, 2020. It's been a pretty wild year. Some might even say unprecedented. And one thing that this year has really forced us to do is re-examine everything. Even things that we wouldn't have expected to re-examine. Things like hand washing and hugging. And those are just the little things. Because we've also, especially in lockdown, we've had to take a good hard look inwards. We've really had to examine what we as individuals actually value, and what people and places we define as home and family. A lot of people say that 2020 has brought everyone home, and I think that's as an expat, that brings up a lot of different feelings. So what has all of this looking inwards and outwards actually revealed? I'd like to think that we've learned a lot from it. As people, especially as women, society has put us in this weird position where we're expected to always wear a mask, so to speak. And we're told that what we show on the outside isn't what matters, because you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. But what does that actually mean when we're constantly being communicated something that is the exact opposite of that? So my linguistics background means that I have a sort of hyper awareness for language and how people use it to communicate with other people in global and cross-cultural contexts, and also for how verbal and nonverbal communication shapes our perception of ourselves and about life, and how it impacts our interpersonal relationships. And that's really what forms the true foundation of my coaching. How we present and perceive verbal and nonverbal language are very powerful. And language can really shape our experience in the world. So focusing on the verbal for a moment, I'm going to ask you a question. It's a rhetorical question. What is the difference between authenticity and hashtag authenticity? Let's think about that for a minute. If you were to open up Instagram right now and search for the hashtag authenticity, you'd probably see some pretty inauthentic representations of people's lives. And especially when it comes to women, it's got to be pictures on the beach, standing up on the top of a mountain with the victory V arm signal, or that random image of running through fields with your arms outstretched, because apparently that's how women celebrate freedom, according to every book and movie cover ever made. And that's not any judgment against any of the people in the photos or any of the creators of this sort of context. But the point that I'm trying to illustrate is that when we search for the hashtag authenticity on social media, as in what is actually being presented to the world, what we're seeing is a version of authenticity that's been heavily commodified, especially in the personal development industry. there are so many wellness gurus out there who market themselves as bastions of authenticity, who claim to be able to teach you how to be fearless and step into your power. But that whole concept sort of falls apart when what they really end up doing is repackaging this commodified version of authenticity as something to aspire to, rather than recognizing it as being a celebration of something that already exists inside us. So the question I'm really examining here is, well, it's kind of the same question, but I'm going to ask it in 3 different ways. The first one is, what do you believe that people see when they see you? What values do you embody? And how comfortable are you with the thought of people seeing the real you? I'm gonna jump onto some demonstration of some nonverbal communication. This does involve a screen share, so let me just set this up for everyone. Can everyone see that? Wait, actually, I can't see you now. Can someone just unmute and tell me if you see the images scrolling?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Fantastic. Now, it might not be completely clear how these images actually connect to this topic, so I'm going to explain. These pictures aren't staged. What these pictures illustrate are an aspect of authenticity that doesn't often come through in this commodified version that wellness gurus try to sell to people. Okay, when I take these pictures, I use a really long lens, so I have to take the pictures from really far away. And that means that most of the time when I'm photographing people, they don't know they're being photographed. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So what these images represent is what I saw in these people when they weren't expecting to be photographed. For some people, they had no idea that I'd taken the picture at all until someone tagged them on Facebook. And one really interesting thing that illustrates the intersection between my photography and my coaching is that a lot of people who show up in my pictures will then use them as their profile pictures on Facebook, which may seem like an insignificant thing, but what I love about that is that it tells me that they liked what they saw when I reflected their image back to them in that little secret moments. I took these pictures, all of these pictures are from earlier this year at various human rights actions that have taken place in the last few months. The Black Lives Matter protests that have happened. I think it was day 1 of our summit or day 2 of our summit, I shared with you a video of a speech that I delivered at the first big Black Lives Matter event here in Brisbane, where I spoke to over 30,000 people about the idea of solidarity not being just a hashtag, and explaining how we as Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, have a very different experience as we travel through the world than our, non-POC counterparts. Some of these pictures were also taken at some of the recent rallies to free the KP120, and we have an international audience here, so I'll explain who the KP120 are. These guys on the balconies here in these pictures, this is a group of refugee men who came to Australia by boat years ago, and in short, have been used as political pawns since then. KP, Kangaroo Point. It's a suburb in Brisbane. There's a hotel, Kangaroo Point Central Hotel, that has been turned into an alternate place of detention, which is just another word for a prison in the middle of the city. So these guys have been locked up in there. They've been in indefinite detention for about 8 years now. And there have been a lot of protests, a lot of actions to try to free these men. And they've been transferred to higher security facilities. And they've been getting so much criticism from some people. And we as activists who come out to support them also get a lot of criticism from people who for some reason find it more appropriate to complain about the inconvenience caused by protesting rather than the human rights violation that is indefinite detention. And this is an indefinite detention that is illegal. Australia is violating international human rights laws with these actions. So the reason that I shoot these photos, the thing that's most important about it to me is that for me, it's very important to be publicly outspoken about what I believe in. For people to actually see what I value. People in general, but also my clients and my potential clients. If they don't know who I am, then how are they going to trust that they can be safe with me? You know, if they don't know what I value, how are they going to feel like they actually know me and the lens through which I see the world? Things like human rights issues and politics and spouting off on social media about all the things that I tend to get political about, these things come with their own brand of criticism, because for some people it comes off as too negative. Which is ridiculous, because it's not about being negative. It's about being grounded in the realities that are actually impacting the world around us. You know, but I'm a life coach to a lot of people, including a lot of people in my industry. You know, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to talk about the bad stuff. I'm supposed to be all positive vibes only, or live, laugh, love at the expense of, you know, actual well-being. One of the most recent videos I posted on my YouTube channel was about the concept of spiritual bypassing, which, for those who may not be familiar, is when people lean really heavily on spiritual practices as a way to sidestep actually facing reality. And it can take a lot of forms. In 2020, the thing that I found most disappointing in terms of how spiritual bypassing has come to the forefront is that people are talking a lot about the COVID problem, race relations, and I've seen so many problematic posts from people who claim to be coaches and from other people as well, that suggest that somehow we can just transcend these things and we can choose not to see evil and choose not to see racism in the world. That's not how racism works. We can't manifest our way out of racism. It just does not, no. This idea that we can transcend the real problems of the world, I find really dismissive. Yes, we can develop strategies to overcome the impacts of those things, but to deny people's real lived experiences is massively insulting. To suggest that, you know, we just need to change our vibration and kind of float or hover above everyone else because somehow we're more enlightened than other people. That to me is more divisive than anything else. You know, people talk about protesting and politics as being divisive, but it's this idea that somehow any one group of people knows better than the rest of the world. No. And that's why I believe that rather than trying to aspire to some commodified version of authenticity, what we really need to do is be very clear within ourselves about what we actually value, how we communicate those values to people, how we embody those values, and how we use them to connect with people, and how we use them to listen to people. Listening is something that I feel has been a bit of a lost art. And, you know, I'm speaking as a woman who is in a polyamorous relationship as well. Like, I have a husband, I have 2 boyfriends. So communication, communication is—
Leslie, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Communication is the key to everything. And communication is about more than just the things you say and the things you do. It's about listening. So my call to action is to just become better listeners, not dismiss people's lived experiences, not sidestep people's realities in an effort to help them overcome things, but to really recognize that everyone has a very different context. Everyone has a very different way of looking at the world. And the sooner we accept that, like fully accept that, that's when we as individuals can come together as a team to actually enact positive change in the world. Thank you.